All right, should we start?
Hi, Claudia.
Hey.
How are you?
Hi, everybody. So many familiar faces here.
Felipe no está.
No, today Felipe is not here.
Felipe is not coming? Or...
No, today no.
All right, ready when you guys are.
Who is going to present? Claudia?
I'm gonna present.
Claudia Francisco is today.
Okay, so it's look like we are ready to start the second day of our first international workshop. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are around the globe. My name is Claudia Rojas. I'm an associate professor at the Institute of Agri-Food, Animal and Environmental Sciences at the Universidad of O'Higgins in San Fernando, Chile. And today I'm going to be moderating the second day of the first international workshop of our project called MULTISCALE Effect of Extreme Forest Fires on Erosion, Water and Biogeochemical Cycles in Natural and Managed Forest Soils, led by Dr. Francisco Matos, who is here today, and Dr. Carolina Merino, who is also here with us today. The project, as you might know, has a strong international and national collaborations, and the main objective is to investigate the impact of forest fires on soil and native forests, degradation and forest plantation in Chile. So with that, on behalf of all the researchers and team collaborators of the project, I welcome you all, and I really want to thank the presenters and the audience for their time today in our second day of workshop. So with no further delay, I would like to make a few announcements before we share the floor with Jorge. And first of all, I would like to remind to the presenters that you guys have 20 minutes. I'm gonna turn on my camera when you have 1 minute left, so you know that you should be wrapping up. And also I ask to the audience to please turn off your microphone so you don't distract the presenters. And at the end of the 3 talks that we have today, we're gonna have a wrapping up conversation period of 10 minutes. So you are welcome to leave your question on the chat, or maybe raise your hand and we can give you the time to ask your question. And so with that announcement, I would like to I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Jorge Matáez Solera. He's a professor of soil science at the Miguel Hernández University in Elche, Spain. His principal research lines involve the study of effect of forest fires on Mediterranean soil physical, chemical, and microbiological properties, with a particular emphasis in soil aggregate stability and repellency in burn soils. He has collaborated with more than 30 research projects related to forest fires, the development of indices of environmental soil quality, degradation and conservation of forest and agricultural soils. So with that, welcome Jorge, and whenever you are ready, you have the floor.
Thank you, Claudia. Can you listen to me?
Yeah, very well.
I am trying to share my screen. Can you see?
Perfect, yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the invitation for this workshop. And I'm going to try to show some examples from my career. I'm going very fast, very few slides from different works that has been published. And in some more recent research that has not been published yet, I will dedicate a little bit more time. Okay, as all of you know, fire is a global phenomenon. There is a distortion of the fire regime in many ecosystems of the world. Some ecosystems are more adapted to fires than others, are more resilient. Currently, we have extreme fire events and are more often, and fire is now more present in non-adapt ecosystems. Yesterday, I have the opportunity to show this slide. So one of the factors that influence the impact of fires in soils are the fire intensity and severity. And yesterday, we described the difference between the two concepts. With this, we have one important factor is the temperature reached in the soil. So independent of the temperature reached, we will have, and also the time of residence of the heat, we will have difference in changes in some soil properties. With this slide is solely to show that biological properties that affect at lower temperatures and the chemistry and the soil physical properties, it depends on the temperature, but I will show you later that in the case of physical properties, also it depends on the type of the soil and soil properties, soil characteristics. Another factors that influence the fire effects are the topography, the fire recurrence, the post-fire meteorological conditions, and this is very important. And what I am trying to focus today here is which is the role of the soil type, what is the voice of soil in this disturbance. So as you know, the soil is diverse. We have many high diversity in the soils across the world. And it's expected that with different soil properties, we will have different soil response to this perturbation that is the fire. And particularly, I can show with two of the properties that Claudia said that I dedicate more time is the water repellency or hydrophobicity and aggregate stability. That both of them are also close related. Water repellency is a property that reduces the affinity of the mineral soil to absorb the water. So it's when the drops of the water remain over soil surface in a dry soil, in the conditions that the soil is dry and water cannot infiltrate for more than 5 seconds. The cause of this is organic compounds that can come from certain vegetation times with rich in lipids, but also for fungal fire containing hydrophobic compounds from different natural sources. And also the fire has an influence in water repellency because fire can vaporize and alter organic matter and condense over soils, over mineral particles. With this, it's easy to understand that the soil more prone to develop water repellency will be sandy soils. Why sandy soils? Because the sand is has the low specific surface. If the soil has more clay, the specific surface of the soil is increasing exponentially. So it's necessary a lot of organic matter or hydrophobic organic matter to become the soil water repellent. In general terms, in the Mediterranean, what we observe is that the fire used to increase the water repellency in the soil. We checked also in control laboratory experiment that in the range of between 200 and 350 degrees, that it's easy to reach in the first centimeters of soil surface during the fires, the water repellency increase. And after that, decrease because the combustion of organic matter. In a general pattern, if we put together many fires from here, the immediate effect of the fire in water repellency is to increase. So in this picture, you can see in this figure, the blue color is, in this case, is hydrophilic, it's less than 5 seconds to infiltrate the water. So in general, with many samples from many different forest fires, in the immediate effect is that burned soils are mainly water repellent with different degrees of water repellency. But the control, the unburned, are mainly hydrophilic. Yeah, this is the general pattern. But if we see these samples from which type of soil come from, we observe that in most of cases, these samples in the Mediterranean came from this type of soil. This type of soil is called the terra rosa, is an alfisols or lubisols, depending on the soil classification systems. But this soil is very representative in many parts of the Mediterranean. And we observe that this is very complicated to develop water repellency in these soils. To try to verify this and to explore which is the reasons, we dedicated an experiment with many samples from different places with this type of soil in the Mediterranean, hidden in the laboratory. And we verified that it was like almost impossible to develop water repellency by burning. But we discovered also why the reasons of this. And the main reasons is because this soil has a less organic matter content, so less source of organic hydrophobic compounds. This soil has also a more clay content, but the key question here was the composition of the mineralogy of the clay fractions. That these soils have a little bit more of kaolinite than other soils of the region. And this was the main factor separating the two groups that could be develop water repellency, something or nothing. The reason of that this soils has more kaolinite is also because these soils are more old. Here is the oldest soils in the Mediterranean, and the kaolinite is accumulating in the soil because it's a mineral that is very resistant to weathering. So during the soil formation, it's accumulating. Also, this soil is very well aggregated. So the aggregates are very strong. So it's a soil more resistant to the impacts of the rainfall. So a small difference in some soil properties we see that can control the occurrence and persistence of soil water repellency developed by burning. Another property that can change, the behavior can be very different between type of soils is the soil aggregation. We did a review paper in 2011, and you can see this graphic as conclusion. I go to a little bit fast, but the most easy to understand is that with the fire severity, the soil aggregate stability decrease because because the combustion of organic matter, and organic matter is a cementing agent. This is another pattern that when increase the water repellency, and water repellency is also in some cases correlated positively with aggregate stability. The strange was this. And this is typical from some Mediterranean soils that have more clay content, calcium carbonate, and iron and aluminum oxides as principal cementing agents. We verified this also later with another work, studying by scanning electron microscopy and XDR, and we observed that the recrystallization at the surface of mineral, because the heating, in cases of extreme fire severity, make this aggregate very strong, very resistant to broken. I'm not saying that this is good. This is also not good because at these temperatures, of course, organic matter is destroyed. Microbial composition are completely destroyed. But the response to erosion will be different. This is some pictures from some days ago in an area affected by a wildfire here in Alicante. And in a part that was extreme fire severity, you can see here the white ash color. We see this in these red soils. We see these kind of aggregates very strong. In the opposite side, I go to show some slide of a recent publication from an area that we study in Patagonia, in Chile, in the Torres del Paine National Park. This national park was affected by a big forest fire in 2011, and we decided to study in 8 years later in collaboration with a team of Universidad de Santiago de Chile, because they were studying the recovery of vegetation, but there was they were not studying the recovery of the soil or how was the status of the soil. So we took samples from different sites because in the park the rainfall varies between 300 millimeters to 1,500 millimeters. And then there are different patterns of plant communities that goes from Patagonian steppe to pre-Andean scrub and Magellanic forest. The main important things here in this region for the behavior of the soil is that the soils are very sandy. The soils are very recent, are very young soils. We have to take into account that this area was covered by ice in the last glaciation, and then the soil formation starts when the ice was removed. So are very young in a cold region with lower biological activity. And then the development of soil structure is complicated also because the parent material is very sandy. We took samples from different areas, but we pay special attention of this one, that is the area of the park with less precipitation and with the vegetation with a steep up and scrub, that is xerophilus scrub. This is a picture of one of the areas of the study. Beautiful, even burned. Is 8 years after the fire. Is more than 70% of the samples was water repellent. It's a natural condition of these soils because sandy and a lot of organic matter, and was no difference between burned and unburned in this case. But this makes these soils also very vulnerable to erosion, because the water repellency is not a problem if you have vegetation, but when the vegetation is removed, the water cannot infiltrate, then the runoff increase. Between the areas, we observe different behavior of organic matter content in the first 5 centimeters, with some areas with decrease between control and burned, like this one or this one. In other cases, increase because the fire was not very severe, and also was not very, the steep was not very strong, very high. But in some cases, was a strong decrease 8 years after the fire. And this case, the area 1 was interesting. Also, the proportion of soil of the sample forming aggregates was very low, and especially here, and with a decrease after the fire and the post-fire erosion. In this area, also, the wind erosion is very important, not only the water erosion. In the Torres del Paine National Park, there are strong blizzards in the summer because the difference of temperature between the glaciers and the earth. As conclusions of this part of this especially work, we can see that the water repellency is a natural property in the soils, and the combination of high sand content and high organic matter make them very susceptible to develop this property. Since these soils have a scarce development with a poor structure, the combination of the two factors, water repellency and poor structure, make them very vulnerable to erosion after the fire. If you have an interest in this work, this was published recently in Spanish Journal of Soil Sciences and Open Access Journal. Another example, also with some characteristics like sandy soil, also very sandy soil, but different in climate conditions, is in an area of Peruvian Andes that we are conducting a research currently. The study area in this case is in Arequipa. Arequipa is more than 2,000 meters above sea level, and is an arid climate with less than 100 millimeters per year. So maybe you are thinking, how is possible forest fire here if this is like a desert? It's because around Arequipa there are big mountains. In concrete, exactly is 3 volcanic mountains, Misti, Chachani, and Pichu Pichu, that is around 6,000 meters above sea level. So in the gradient of these mountains, we have an area between more or less 3,500 meters to 4,500 meters, but we have a like an oasis of vegetation. In the area of Arequipa, almost nothing because it is like a desert, arid conditions. In between 4,000 to 5,000, nothing because the altitude there in the middle, we have increase in elevation of precipitation. In concretely in the study area, around 4,000 meters above sea level, the mean annual precipitation increased to around 400 millimeters. But this is also very interesting that this precipitation is only concentrated between 2 or 3 months, but mainly between January and February. This is the picture of the landscape. You can see the scrubland mainly, but there are differences in the first part. We have the scrubland. Here you can see like a forest. It's a forest of Kenya, and Kenya is a species that is a tree species that has not had adaptation to fire. And over you can see we have almost nothing, only Yareta mainly, or over the rock. In an altitude more than 5,000 meters, nothing. So it's a special place, very interesting. We are conducting this study with the Forest Service of Peru because they are very worried because the numbers of fires are increasing now there. The history of this is that in 2018 we have a wildfire, and in 2 years after we could get the budget for a project to do a study of vegetation and soil. First soil sampling was in 1 year ago, and some weeks ago I was there for a second sampling. I can show you now here only the results, the preliminary results of the first sampling. The soil is also very young soil. It's an empty soil. It's a torrip cement. It's a young soil, sandy and in an arid conditions, and developed over volcanic clastic sandstone. In this case, we decide to the experimental design to take the sample. It's a classical burn versus control, and we decide to make another factor because the vegetation has some species very big, like this one is berberis, and another is Parestrefia that is very representative, but with a small size. So we took samples from below berberis and below Parestrefia. So some pictures of the area. We do a set of many soil properties, and I'm not going here to detail, and I only go to show some results of this is the first soil sampling. This is 3 years after the fire. And below berberis, below Parestrefia. This is control and this is burned. You can see in most of cases, in most of parameters, we have, yeah, Claudia, it's only 1 minute. More or less?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I will pass some slides. You can see here that in most of the cases, we have a big, strong difference between burn and unburned in soil organic carbon, in total content of aggregates, an increase in bulk density, so compaction because the loss of organic matter. But also, we have, in this case, we have 100% of samples water repellent, and with mainly in burned under berberis with high variability of water repellency. Microbial biomass carbon also with big difference, basal respiration, even metabolic QTN, that this could be very interesting, but we are discussing now the results. Also enzymatic activities, and the main difference in the under the species with a big size. Okay, I'm going to pass some picture. Conclusion of this preliminary work. We have now the second soil sampling, but we have to analyze. But there are big differences, and compared with other fire affected areas across the world, we can conclude that the risk of degradation of this ecosystem is higher than in Mediterranean areas. And in addition, considering the current scenario of climate change, with a decrease in the availability of water in these arid regions also makes the ecosystem more vulnerable to degradation. Yesterday we were discussing about these conditions, and I think we can learn a lot from these places that now, with more arid conditions that are burning, because our future conditions in the Mediterranean will be more similar like this. And yeah, I go to pass this part of the presentation because I have no time. Only say that in some cases, we like a treatment like a salvage logging, we have a study that can be very negative impact with the soil. And yeah, I wanted to show this, but if we have no time, I go to pass. Only remark something. A very important thing in these studies has been the microbiology and the presence of mosses, of biocrats of mosses. This is the more recent studies that we have. Is the PhD thesis of Minerva that is finishing now with the 5 paper of this, and mainly focus on the biocrats of mass. The masses are very important as improving the microbiology properties in the soil, are improving the fertility, and also is protecting because the stability of the soil for erosion is higher when they are. So in summary, and to finish my presentation, some sentence. The fire is not the problem. We know that fire is a natural phenomenon. The problem is the changes in its natural regime. The effects of the soil are highly variable and in part controlled by the type of soil. Decisions on post-fire management must be done after evaluation of the affected area. The possibilities can be non-intervention, add with some emergency treatment like mulch, or improve soil condition to accelerate the recovery, like an organic amendment, must be decided at local scale, and maybe in the same forest fire affected area, you have to do different treatments depending on the conditions. That improper post-fire management can cause more damage than fire. I could not show here, but you can see in the papers. The short, medium, and long-term fire strategies should be planned by multidisciplinary teams. I think this is very important. From forestry, ecology, botany, geography, sociology also, and of course must include soil scientists. And the post-fire management must take care on the soils and take the advantage of this circumstance to achieve future forests that will be more resilient to fire. This is in relation that I commented yesterday. We cannot expect in 20, 30 years have the same forest that now. So we have to be realist that this is going to change. So we can try to do the restoration good, taking into account the soil, but also this circumstance that the climate is changing. And thanks, and sorry, Claudia, if I put a lot of pictures.
Thank you so much, Jorge. I actually wanted to thanks for your beautiful pictures and your great presentation. You might want to leave your email on the chat in case somebody wants to find out more about the part that you didn't have much time to present. And we already see that we have some questions for you that we're going to take after the 3 presentations are done. So with that, I think we can have time to listen our second speaker. If you stop presenting, Jorge, so you can turn off your presentation so Miriam can put hers.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry.
So while Miriam is doing that, I will present her. She's a researcher at the Universidad de Sevilla in Spain. And her main research lines focus on ecological restoration, soil carbon dynamics, soil biodiversity, and forest ecology. And he has her research and collaborations with emphasis in soil microbial ecology, biogeochemistry, and conservation and restoration of ecosystem in the context of global change. So Miriam, once you have your presentation, share with us. You have.
Hi, Claudia.
20
Yeah,
minutes.
I'm having trouble. If you give me a second, because
Sure.
I'm using a new laptop and I need to change preferences
All right.
on your screen and the screen. I might need to leave the meeting and connect really quickly, just so that it accepts this change.
So what we can do is, while we wait for Miriam, we can use 5 minutes of our last part of the presentation. So Jorge, if you are willing to answer one of the questions that we have in the chat, we have a question from Francisco Nájera, who is asking if soils affected by fires maintain hydrophobicity for how long? And if there was a recovery to hydrophobicity, could have some possible recovery in time estimated. Okay, so Miriam, well, Miriam is ready, so Jorge, you can think about.
Yeah, I can write in the chat. Don't worry.
Okay.
Hi, Miriam. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead, Miriam. You have 20 minutes.
Problem solved. I was panicking, thinking that this would take me a long time, but it was quick.
No worries.
That's good.
The floor is yours.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Now let's see. Can you see the whole screen? Yes. Because it's a bit distorted in my screen.
When you have 1 minute left, I'm gonna turn on my camera.
You will show up. Okay, sure. That's good. Okay, so well, I'm gonna give a very like a big picture, like an overview of some of the studies we've been doing in connection to the fires, the big mega fires, also called Black Summer fires, and that took place in Australia in 2019, 2020. I was still there living in Australia, not anymore. And it was quite impactful for the society because it was it was unprecedented. It was like Australia is a continent very, very adapted to fire. Most ecosystems there can survive fire, resprout, reseed, and after only a few months, things go back to normal in general. But this was really, really unprecedented, and the consequences were really bad. I even have a colleague who lost her farm, her house, and it was really, really devastating for a lot of people. Many species were affected in the fire, and even entire ecosystems and communities were impacted. And the country at the time focused on recovering vegetation, which is great. And there was a lot of packages for small business, families, research, to really develop strategies to restore or to assist in the recovery of ecosystems to fire. But unfortunately, there wasn't much effort put on soils, and we really wanted. We got some of this funding, and we wanted to look at some of these ecosystems and what actually happened with on the soils after all these fires. So we focused on two areas that were particularly affected during those fires: is Blue Mountains and Kangaroo Island. Kangaroo Island is, as you can see here, it's an island which is mostly classified as Mediterranean climate ecosystem, and was, as you could see, was quite affected. Like half of the island was burned, and these had really impactful consequences for farmers, for managers, and what we wanted to see, we actually had some colleagues who had properties there and allow us to go to the properties and do sampling in these areas. And we wanted to see what happened to the soil. So we chose 3 ecosystem types within this area that we could access 6 months after the fire. And one of them was a natural woodland. And then we have an unburned patch and a burned patch. And then we also wanted to compare with the pasture, like with the land that was previously used and managed, and not natural, but managed by for grazing and for farming, and compare, you know, to these other sites and see whether previous management of the area would have an impact on soil. We analyze soil chemical properties and microbial abundance and diversity. It's great that actually that Jorge was talking a little bit about soil and water repellency, because I really don't have to go through that and can just go to the point of what we found. which is here we have some box plots for active organic carbon, the more labile fraction of organic carbon, more accessible, total carbon, nitrogen, and the carbon and nitrogen ratio. And what we found is that 6 months after the fire, actually in the burn areas, you can see here, the burn non-managed and unburned non-managed, there was a decrease in the total carbon, and there was also a decrease in the total nitrogen, which is really opposite to what is usually found. We found there was significantly higher carbon and nitrogen in the burn managed areas compared to the non-managed areas, which makes sense because we predicted we didn't analyze this, but there was previously management of the areas, probably nitrogen fertilizers, input of cattle, grazing, and but we were surprised that this total carbon was decreased with the fire, because usually those elements are readily available to the fire. So there might be in some sort of like really high temperatures, which actually we didn't measure the temperature of the fire in those patches, unfortunately. We also look at some hydrological properties like soil water repellency and electrical conductivity, and so all the chemical properties like pH, electrical conductivity, and soil water repellence. And what we found, and this was also really interesting, and like following what Jorge said, this probably had to do with the temperature reached during the fire. What we found is that the fire actually decreased soil water repellency. So as we saw, there's an increase in water repellency after the fire, but then when temperatures reach really, really high, heat really, really high, there's actually a decrease. So we predicted that probably temperatures were really high in this case. Looking at the microbial communities, we saw very, very interesting things. There's more data that we got out of this study, but it's still unpublished. And so I'm going to present these figures here, which have been really recently published in the Journal of Environmental Management. Here you have the information at the bottom of the slide in case you want to read the paper. But basically, when we analyze the bacteria gene and the eukaryotes gene, what we found looking at the relative abundance is that there was a change after the fire. It was a change towards the disappearance of some acidobacteria towards forms like chloroflexi and firmicutes. So there was quite a significant change. And this was also for the areas that were managed. So both areas managed and non-managed or natural were similar in terms of composition compared to the non-burn area. So basically, we can assume that fire had a really, really huge impact. And therefore, because we can really not conclude of the temperature of the fire had an impact, because we've seen, Jorge presented that information, that actually even low temperatures reached during a fire can significantly change the community. In terms of eukaryotes, were really, really, really significant. We could see that some mycorrhiza type of fungi were actually lost during the fire, which can actually really have consequences. And this is something we're looking at now. Consequences on the vegetation that was recovered, because obviously these associations of mycorrhizas and plants are lost, and plants might take a little bit longer to come back. And this for this Kangaroo Island, this Mediterranean area, but we were also looking what happened in the Blue Mountains. The Blue Mountains is a very, very special area, very beautiful national park. It's actually a World Heritage Area. So it's supposed to be protected, although there's still mining happening in the area, or it's been happening for many, many years. This area was over 60% of the area was burned, at least partially, and over 122 million mammals, birds, and reptiles were impacted with this fire. We wanted to focus on these swamp type ecosystems because they're actually really important in the area. They They basically are a reservoir of water and provide water to the whole basin of even Sydney, cities in the outside of Sydney, and maintain the whole national park, these swamps, in terms of hydrology, connectivity. And we saw, just by looking at the sites, you could see here, there's in this map, these are the areas that we sampled. And Happy Valley, Gangan, these are the names of these swamps. And you could see that 1 year after the fire, this was 1 year after the fires, almost 1 year, 10 months after the fire, those swamps which were not previously mined were recovering quite well. We could see vegetation in the swamps and started filtering and already like a vegetation cover that could protect from erosion and sedimentation. But those swamps that were previously mined were not recovering at all, were completely burned and vegetation wasn't establishing. And we wanted to see what is what were the microbial communities here, and what were like, whether there was some colonizing on these areas and the survival of this community. So we collected soil and we extracted DNA and sequence 16S and 18S genes for bacteria and eukaryotes. And looking at this NDMS figure, we could see that basically the community of the post-fire mine and the post-fire mine swamps was quite different, was significantly different. Looking at the relative abundance, we also saw that basically in this post-fire mine, there was a predominance of actinobacteria compared to the other swamps, which were not previously mined. And it was really significant that in this area, in some of these swamps, there was a high presence of cyanobacteria. And why was this significant for us? Well, basically because we work with cyanobacteria a lot. We have a couple of projects with cyanobacteria, which are components of biocrust. And these soil biocrafts cover many areas in many ecosystems all over the world. And these biocrafts are formed for cyanobacteria, but also other types of bacteria, mosses, as Jorge mentioned, very important, also post-fire, lichens, and other communities. And cyanobacteria are autotrophs organisms, photosynthetic, which can fix carbon and nitrogen into the soil, and they can tolerate very extreme conditions. So we predict that after the fire, these cyanobacteria could actually start establishing. And why is this important? They can actually also, as soil stabilizers, once they start developing a biocrust, can protect the soil from erosion. And previous work we've done with cyanobacteria showed that actually in soils, they are very depleted of nutrients. For example, mine soils used in substrates used in restoration of mining areas that come from the pit, from the mining pit, can actually be colonized by cyanobacteria. And this work, which was an opinion paper we published also last year, we actually proposed cyanobacteria as a mean for restoring post-fire affected sites where soil wasn't recovering or were at risk of erosion. And then here we propose how both mosses, which I'm not going to elaborate because Jorge already talked about that. We haven't worked with mosses that much, but mostly on cyanobacteria. And we propose how cyanobacteria, given their abilities of fixing nitrogen, carbon, and improve soil stability by releasing exopolysaccharides, which are substances that aggregate soil, could be a good asset as inoculants in post-fire restoration. Here we also presented fire mosses, which is also a commonly found in some areas after fire, and we've seen that they can protect the soil and stabilize. And what we did in these areas that I showed in the Blue Mountains is with biocrust cyanobacteria, which we had already available in the lab from previous isolation. We prepared some slurries of cyanobacteria and inoculated this burnt soil. And what we saw very soon, only after a few weeks, is that you could see here little mosses starting to grow. These images are in the microscope. we're still analyzing this data, but this is already very promising because we show that actually by inoculating cyanobacteria, which can be cultivated easily ex situ and produce a lot of biomass, we can start.
Miriam, I don't know if I'm the one who cannot listen to you. Everybody else is listening to. Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Maybe it's my headphones. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but you're fine.
It's my okay. I think it's my internet connection. Can you hear me? Because I'm.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So anyway, I was about to finish. So this is our latest experiment. We're looking now at the microbial communities apart from mosses, and we're preparing some slurry balls with these cyanobacteria that we plan to inoculate in the field. And yeah, and with that I finish. And just as a conclusion, wanted to know that we can see that how previous management is very important. Fire can really have consequences on soils and ecosystems, but previous management is very important. Historical management, the land use, how we manage the use can really affect the outcomes of fire on the soil. And we also propose these cyanobacteria inoculations as a potential alternative to restore areas that are not really recovering by themselves, and they can restart the process in the soil, harbor other organisms, and protect very, very sensitive soils to erosion and other processes that can be really damaging. And thanks very much, and thank you to all the team involved in this research. And I think I'm okay with time, hopefully.
Yeah, you did perfectly fine. Actually, we do have some few minutes, but we can catch up on the schedule. So thank you for that. And so as a reminder, please leave your, I see that there is a lot of going on the chat already. So if you want to leave questions for Miriam, please do so. And you can also ask at the end of the third presentation. So with that, Miriam, if you stop sharing, there you go. And we're gonna move to our third presenter. And while Dr. Alexei is putting his presentation, I'm gonna present.
Claudia, we cannot listen to you.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna present to the third speaker, Alexei Dimov. He is a researcher at the Moscow State University at the Institute of Biology, Komi Scientific Center. Alexei is a doctor of biological sciences in soil science and ecology. He specialized his work on carbon stock in soils, forest soils, post-pyrogenic soils, densitometry, hydrophobic interaction chromatography, effect of land use on climate change, ecology, biochemistry, and soil genetic science. So with that, I welcome Alexei. Thank you so much for your time and presenting your work and sharing your knowledge with us. So whenever you're ready, you have 20 minutes, and as I did previously, I will turn on my camera when you have 1 minute left.
Okay. It's okay.
We can see you well. We see your presentation. I don't know if we can hear you. Can you speak?
Okay.
Please?
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. We're presenting some results from our project. We have a few projects which
Alexei,
yes.
I think we do have some troubles with your connection. Let's try to turn off your camera and see if that will work, so we can hear you better. Let's try that.
I don't know, but I have some problem with my camera. But if you hear me and see my desktop, please let me begin.
Yeah, let's go. And if I cannot hear you, I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation to present data. We presented data from team, from Russian team mostly, the scientists from soil science, from ecology, from ecology, from
Alexei, I think we do have troubles with connection. We cannot hear you well. I don't know if you can try and.
Okay, sorry.
Change.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, but it's not continuous. Like
Oh, sorry, I don't know. What I should be doing? Please wait 2 minutes. I change my microphone and it will be okay.
Okay, yeah, let's do that quickly so we can try to hear
Okay,
you.
do you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. Do you hear me?
yes, we do. Okay, while we wait for Alexei, I think we have a lot of questions in the chat. So you can please keep doing so. And I think we can give him a few seconds so we can move on. Just for all of you who are here, this is a reminder that we are on the second day of this 3-day workshop, which is part of our project called MULTISCALE: Effect on Extreme Forest Fires on Erosion, Water, and Biogeochemical Cycles in Natural and Forest Environments. And we do appreciate that you all are here because actually this is the workshop aim is to gather information and provide the space for further collaboration. So I'm so glad that you guys are sharing your knowledge and contact information on the chat. And let's see if we have better luck with the microphone right now. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so let's see. Maybe if somebody from the organizing team want to leave the website of our project, that would be great. If you guys can leave it on the chat, so audience might wanna take a look at that, so we can share some information about the project. Okay.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you better. Yep.
Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes, please, can I try again?
Sure, go ahead and let's start over.
Okay, I am presenting results about big team and about fire. Sorry for this technical problem. I don't know what is it, but we're presenting the results from a soil scientist, from forest ecologist, and from a microbiologist and some other people. How about fire? Fire is one of the most factors affecting on the boreal system, and approximately 10 or 15 million hectares are annually affected by the fire in a forest. And boreal forest. Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you. We do see one slide. I don't know if you are changing
Yes.
the slide. You are on
Yes.
the fire affected areas and number of fires in Russian Federation.
Yes. Yes. I now will change it, and the number of fire and fire affected area depend on the climatic conditions of the year. This is presented on the this slide, and if you talk about current conditions and climatic change, we can see that temperature is rising, and this is increase fire impact in the northern region, and this is very important factors. If you talk about burning forest in Siberia in the last 20 and probably 50 years, we can see increasing in the number of fire and the total affected area. Very interesting example from Komi Republic. I'm presenting Komi Republic, and on this slide presenting a very contrasting year, last year and this year. And we can see this year was very dry, and last year was not very dry, and you can see that fire is moved to the north, moved to the landscape with higher carbon concentration, with increasing box ecosystems, Maya, and some other soils. In this presentation, we presented data from big boreal Russian regions. This is a Komi Republic. I think so. This is a half of Chile, and Krasnoyarsk region. This very big region in Siberia, and we are studying a different type of forest, different type of ecosystem, and this forest pits and a different type of forest. Structure of my presentation, I will present some morphological properties and some example of change in physical and chemical properties and microbiological also. Also, I will present effect of fire on carbon stocks at podzols, paragenic features in the peatland and peat soils, and we are analyzing some methods for determination of pyrogenically carbon biomarkers. Yes, this is a typical pine forest in middle taiga zone. Usually this is not very high severity fire. This very interesting that on these soils growing a pine forest, and we can estimate it how much fire will be where on this site at last 400 years. This is very interesting because fire return interval for this area about from 30 for 100 years. It means that every 100 years each places are burning. Some examples, this sandy soils under pine forest, and you can see that in the upper part of mineral soil, you can find some pyrogenic horizon, and these pyrogenic sinks can be saved for 100 years. This is some example from different soil profiles, and you can see that litter not burned completely, only part of more dry litter are affected to the fire. Okay, this is some another example. This fire at beginning of summer. Litter is very wet and also burning only upper part and ground vegetation. And but pyrogenic sinks in seen in litter and some another horizon. More catastrophic impact in a spruce forest, because after fire, even low intensity, most of trees died and formed and some another type of forest. here. But what is very interesting that pyrogenic sinks and can be saved in the upper part of mineral horizon for 150 years. It's very good results for us. And we can find some charcoal, salt, and some another. Also, pyrogenic sinks can be saved in a buried horizon at the depth of 50 centimeters. It's very typical. This is a very interesting situation when fire affected by the sphagnum forest. This is a wet forest with a high level of organic carbon, organic horizon, and this litter affected by the fire, not completely, only part of this litter are burned. Very interesting results from polar circle. This is southern limit of permafrost, and in some years this ecosystem can be affected by the fire, but this is not very typical. Under such type of forest, big part of litter are burned, but not completely too. Some physical, chemical, and microbiological properties, and they change under fire. Usually, fire change and acidity, water carbon content, and some another properties. But after 2 and 20 years, usually these conditions is very similar with the soils not affected by the fire. Also change in the CN ratio. Some on the next picture were presented, and carbon in the water-soluble carbon compounds, and usually after fire we can find higher decreasing of this concentration, and only after restoration of ground cover, concentration will be very similar with a control site or not affected fire site. This also presented some results about restoration of soil properties in the pine at the podzols, and also we are studying some densimetric fraction, this free and occluded organic carbon, and we find that in a soil of fire affected podzols, we can increase in carbon content in the upper mineral horizon, and mostly connected with free and occluded organic carbon. This is a very typical situation, and when in a soil organic matter we can find increasing aromatic compounds, and but after 2 and 3 years we can not detect it, this increasing in aromatic compounds, because ecosystem is very changed, and a lot of debris and put on the soil and change soil organic matter with similar composition in a natural forest. Some another very interesting compounds, some biomarkers. This is polyaromatic hydrocarbons. We can find increasing in the upper horizon from 2 to 50 times in comparison with the initial forest, and some part of these compounds increasing in a free and occluded organic carbon. Also, we can find in a hydrophobicity increasing in a pyrogenic horizon. So very similar, and this is hydrophobic properties connected with carbon content. Yes, very interesting results that we found change in microbiological activity, and especially in pyrogenic horizon is typical to have a very low microbiological activity. this is typical even after 100 years after fire. This is a typical situation when microbiological activity of these peat soils, we can find very similar situation. Yes, we try to estimate how fire affect on the carbon stocks and podzols. We are studying some pits, some podzols. One here, it's mean 1 year after last fire, 23 years after, and another. But we did not find impact fire on the carbon stocks. We think that carbon stocks will be low, but we did not such situation, and we begin studying dendrochronology on these plots, and every point it means how much fire were on these plots. Yes, and for the 2nd century were from 3 to 9 different fire on different plots. And if we compare these plots with number of fire, we hypothesize that more number of low intensity fire in a similar landscape leads to some increasing in carbon stocks in a soil. But this is only hypothesis because we have not enough point of view. According with this, we begin some pyrogenic laboratory experimental for estimate how much carbon move from litter from different type of forest. Yes, we found that under this temperature, only half of organic carbon move from the samples, and half is stay and can be enrichment of soil horizon. Yes, but we can typically find an increasing of aromaticity, and this is typical for all type of forest. Some example from peats soils. This is very enrichment in organic carbon soils, and we found some pyrogenic horizon in a different depth. First in 10 centimeters, and second on the beginning of formation. These pits, age of this soil about 9,000 years. This is very interesting, and we use for estimation pyrogenic activity, we use the charcoal content in the peat soils, and you can see that this is landscape can affected by the fire more higher in Atlantic and boreal period than now. Yes, but in this period temperature were on 2 or 3 degrees more than modern. It means that after increasing temperature, this pits can be affected fire more. Some example of peat soils, they save of pyrogenic history, they growing very slowly, and you can find that a lot of amount of charcoal in the soil profiles is increasing in Atlantic period in the optimum of Holocene. This is a very typical situation, and we found a similar situation in Komi and Krasnoyarsk region also. And very interesting then polyaromatic hydrocarbons also increasing in horizon with high concentration of charcoal. It means that main part of hydrocarbons accumulated in charcoal, I think so. And we estimated some parameters, and individual compounds can be connected with the fire. Yes, and what is a pyrogenic carbon? This is a big problem, and we use for estimation concentration of pyrogenic carbon of 3 methods. First of all, at the nuclear magnetic spectroscopy, and second, this is a benzene carboxylic acids, BPCA, and the determination of polyarenes. Yes, this result presented in these articles, but slowly we can find that nuclear magnetic resonance give us a good results, and pyrogenic horizon we can find increasing aromatic structure. This is very typical, but when we this diagnostic horizon, but when we estimated BPCA, this for my mention, this is the best methods for calculation of pyrogenic carbon content, and in a pyrogenic horizon we can increasing the BPCA content up to the 15% from total carbon content. This is very good results, and mostly connected with some individual BPCA. One more slides from northern area. This fire can be lead to melting permafrost, and some results from our Siberian colleagues from Roman Desyatkin. They found that fire in a permafrost can be leads to increasing water, to increasing in lakes, and increasing of the area of permafrost landscape. Yes, this presenting a result of estimation of fire impact on water table and volume of water at Yakutia. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for these technical mistakes, and I'm ready to answer your questions if you have.
Thanks, Alexei, for your talk, and we understand these technical questions, and those things happen, so no worries. We do have few minutes left though, so if somebody from the audience wants to pose a quick question for Alexei, it's welcome. And one question for Jorge. Jorge, I see he has been very active on the chat. He has answer most of the question. There is a question for Jorge. Carolina asked, what impact does the fire have on redox potential of the soil?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the questions to
But Alexei, the question,
yes.
let's direct it for Jorge, and then you can add for sure on that. Thank you so much.
But I don't know the answer, so maybe,
Alexei can help you.
No. We're not measurement these parameters.
I didn't measure this, so I don't know. I really don't know.
So
it's
there
interesting.
we have a question to answer in the project. Well, we are running out of time, but we can have time for one more question, the last question. Alexei, I wanted to ask you, if somebody's thinking while somebody's posting on the chat, did you mention something about microbial activity in your talk? I don't know if I follow you correctly. And those microbial activity, you were seeing that fires affected after 100 years, the activity of microbial communities. Is that correct?
Yes, I understand your questions. Thank you very much. We have a special scientist for microbial community, but we in this project we estimated specific pyrogenic horizon saved 100, and we found that this horizon have very slow microbiological parameters such as basal respiration and some another. But we have some publications now, they in a reduction, and in a few months we can you can find this information in an article. I think so.
Great. We have another question for you from Luis, and he is asking, could you talk us more about how is this WR on the E against the O horizon, this water repellency on the E against the O horizon?
Okay, sorry, I not understand your questions, but I write
on the
your questions.
chat. So
Okay.
can you comment on the water repellency between the E horizon compared to the O horizon?
Yes, yes. These questions, okay, I understand because we estimated. Oh, well, it will be better. We estimated repellency of upper part of mineral horizon, but when this soil affected by the fire, a lot of pyrogenical carbon moved to the upper part of mineral soil, and in this way we can find.
We're not seeing your screen.
Okay. Sorry, few minutes, few seconds. Yes, and one more important thing that after fire, a lot of pyrogenic carbon moved to the upper part of mineral horizon, and they enrichment of mineral horizon, and after that later growing on this place. And what is a more typical situation? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, probably we have some problem with
Yeah. Don't worry about
presentation.
it. We do have time for last question. Carolina asked. I'm sorry for the other questions that we are running out of time, but Carolina is asking how can thermal gradient affect redistribution of liquid water through soil profile? She doesn't say to whom is this question, so I don't know. Jorge or Alexei, if you guys want to answer that.
It means thermal gradients during the fire or after?
I believe during the fire, if I'm reading, yeah. Carol,
In the case of
after the fire.
After the fire. What I observe in our soils is that during the time that is without vegetation, the gradient, the temperature in the soil during the day, the gradient is higher than in a controlled soil, especially the higher temperatures, not the lower during the night. But the soil is a good isolator of the temperature. But the relation of this with the water balance, I don't know. I'm not sure if I answered to your question.
All right, but we have okay. Yeah, Jorge, thank you so much for your answer. Of course, this is the first. You can stop sharing your screen, Alexei. We are gonna finish our session for today. We have a great talk on the chat, great presentation, and no worry for the technical difficulties. Those things happen, so no worries. And we want to invite you all for tomorrow, our last session, the third day of the 3 days workshop. And we're going to have some great talk tomorrow. And so we're going to start at the same time with the same Zoom link. So please don't miss the opportunity to have more interaction with the group and with the project tomorrow. And with that, I will leave you here and thank you all for your presentation and your participation. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, and sorry for my technical problem.
That's fine. Thank you so
Yes,
much
yes.
to all of you. See you around. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.